Hello and welcome to this next Safeguarding Bite-sized video in this series that I'm producing. So today we're going to focus on neglect, which is one of the categories of abuse. So let's start with a definition of neglect. So neglect is defined as the persistent failure to meet a child's basic physical or psychological needs, likely to result in the serious impairment of the child's health or development. Looking at neglect in a bit more detail, once a child is born, neglect may involve a parent or carer failing to provide adequate food, failing to provide protection from physical or emotional harm, failing to ensure a child has adequate supervision, failing to ensure access to appropriate medical care and treatment. And when you look at cases of abuse, neglect tends to differ because there's rarely a single incident or crisis like you may expect to see around physical or sexual abuse. Neglect is something which is quite persistent and repeated over time. When we're looking at identification of incidents of neglect, it's really helped us if we know our learners, we know the people in front of us, we know what their consistent life lived experience is. So talk to our learners about what their lived experience is. If you're worried about them, be professionally curious, ask them questions, be interested in what they're doing outside of college, and be alert to neglect. It's really, really important to state that if we identify incidents of neglect early, it will really minimise the impact of effects that ongoing and persistent long-term neglect has on children and young people. So early identification is really, really important. Not only should we know our learners, but actually get to know our parents. What is their consistent behaviour? How do they present consistently? Are they behaving consistently, or are they behaving in different ways each time? Get to know their behaviours. And if we have a gut feeling that something's wrong, or you're worried and your gut's just telling you that something's just not right, make that referral to the safeguarding team. I'm just going to introduce a slide, so I'm going to play around a second because I want you to look at identification of neglect. What you can do is, I'm not going to go through this entire slide, but if you pause the video on this part, you can zoom in and look at the different aspects of neglect: physical neglect, medical neglect, emotional neglect, educational neglect. So there's just some examples there of how neglect may manifest itself. So if you want to read that in a bit more detail, pause the video and you'll be able to see that at your own leisure. Should be back to me now. Hi. Moving back through the PowerPoint. So if we just summarize the video. So neglect affects children of all ages, and in terms of the kind of breakdown of who it affects, boys or girls, it affects them both equally. We need to understand that in a typical class, 1 in 10 children is experiencing neglect. So in a typical class, 1 in 10 of our learners is experiencing neglect. And I've mentioned it previously, but if you have a gut feeling that something is not right or somebody may be experiencing neglect, please contact the pptx safeguarding team or the MASH, the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. Both contact details are in the last and final slide. So thank you for watching. If you have any concerns or any questions, please contact the teams in the next slide. Or if you want more information, come and speak to me within the safeguarding team. Thank you very much.